I, 32F, have an 8-year-old daughter, Lily, who is on the autism spectrum. She was diagnosed when she was 3, and it's been a long journey to help her with social situations and daily activities. Over the years, we've had a lot of ups and downs, but overall, she's a happy, kind, and intelligent child. I've tried to do everything I can to ensure she feels supported and loved, and I've always been open with my family about her condition. My brother, Aaron, 34M, is getting married to his fiancée, Lisa, 30F. The wedding has been a big deal, and from the very beginning, I was told that I was welcome to bring Lily along. We're a close family, so I assumed that would be no problem. However, about a month before the wedding, Aaron called me to discuss the details. He said that while he understood Lily's condition, he didn't think it would be a good idea for her to attend the wedding because he was worried she might cause a scene. I was stunned. Lily isn't the type to cause scenes. She gets overwhelmed in loud or crowded environments, and we've had to leave a few events early because she gets overstimulated. But that doesn't mean she's disruptive. She's always on her best behavior when we're out, even though it takes extra effort on my part to make sure she feels comfortable. Aaron continued, saying that he didn't want the stress of having to worry about Lily ruining the day for everyone else. He suggested that I find a sitter for her or leave her with our parents during the ceremony and reception. I told him that wouldn't work. Lily needs me, and I'm not comfortable leaving her with someone she doesn't know, especially since it's a big, unfamiliar event. She's also at an age where she's very aware of who's around her, and being separated from me in such a public setting would likely cause her a lot of distress. I asked Aaron why he didn't want to make accommodations for her, like finding a quieter space or having someone available to help her if she got overwhelmed. His response was that it wasn't his problem, and he didn't think it was reasonable to ask his guests to deal with it for the sake of one person. He made it clear that Lily's presence was an inconvenience, and that he wanted to have a perfect wedding day without worrying about her behavior. I was heartbroken. This was my brother, someone I've always been close to. But I felt like he was telling me that my daughter wasn't welcome because of something she couldn't control. After that conversation, I spoke to our parents, who were equally disappointed by Aaron's stance. They didn't understand why he couldn't make an exception for Lily, especially since they know how much effort I put into managing her needs. But at the end of the day, they said it was his wedding and I should respect his wishes. I felt torn. I wanted to support my brother, but at the same time, I couldn't just sit back and accept that he was essentially telling me that my daughter wasn't good enough to be there. I gave him a final call, telling him that I wouldn't be attending the wedding unless Lily was allowed to come. I explained that she's my priority and I wasn't going to leave her behind. Aaron was furious. He accused me of making it all about me and Lily, and said I was being dramatic and selfish. He even suggested that maybe I didn't care enough about him or his wedding. I felt crushed. I had always been there for Aaron, but it felt like he didn't even care about the sacrifice I was making to be a part of his special day. After the argument, he started telling other family members that I was being unreasonable and that I was ruining his wedding by making it about Lily. I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit isolated. It seemed like everyone was on Aaron's side, even though they all knew how much I've been through as a mother. Eventually, I decided that I couldn't attend the wedding if it meant abandoning my principles. I sent Aaron a message saying that I wasn't going to be part of a celebration that excluded my daughter. I told him that I loved him, but I couldn't support a decision that made me feel like I was failing as a mother and putting my daughter's well-being second. Aaron hasn't spoken to me since, and I'm starting to feel like maybe I overreacted. I spoke to a couple of my friends, and they said I was right to stand my ground. But then I started thinking, am I being unreasonable? I know weddings are a big deal, and I get that he wants everything to go perfectly. Maybe I should have just tried harder to find a way to make it work for him. My husband thinks I did the right thing, but he's also a little frustrated because he's been put in the middle of the situation. I really don't want to lose my brother over this, but I also can't imagine being anywhere without Lily. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because he banned my daughter from coming? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I, 29F, had a pretty big birthday party this year, something I'd been looking forward to for months. It was a mix of family and friends, and we rented a nice venue to host it because I wanted everyone to be comfortable and have a good time. I spent weeks planning it, coordinating everything from the food to the music, making sure everything was perfect. I was really excited about it. One of my best friends, let's call her Emily, 28F, has been in my life since high school. We've been through a lot together, and we're pretty close, but recently, things between us have felt a little off. She's always been a bit high maintenance, and I've noticed over the past year that she's been more demanding of my time and attention. I've tried to brush it off because, well, she's my friend and I care about her. But it's gotten harder to ignore as the months have gone by. When I invited Emily to my birthday party, I made it clear that I had a guest list that I had to stick to because the venue had a capacity limit. I told her I was excited for her to come, but also reminded her that there would be other people there, and I wanted everyone to feel comfortable. She seemed fine with it, but there was something in her tone that felt off when she replied. Still, I didn't think too much of it. The night of the party arrived, and everything was going smoothly. People were eating, drinking, dancing, and having a good time. I was really enjoying myself and felt grateful that everyone was having fun. Emily showed up a little late, but that wasn't a big deal. I greeted her and introduced her to a few people she hadn't met yet. Everything seemed fine at first, but then, about 2 hours into the party, things started to take a turn. Emily began acting strangely. She was clearly getting more and more tipsy, which wasn't an issue in itself. Everyone was having drinks, but her behavior started to get a little erratic. She began interrupting conversations, making weird comments, and getting visibly upset when people didn't immediately give her attention. At one point, she started loudly complaining about how she didn't feel like she was being noticed enough and how I was spending too much time with other people. It was awkward and uncomfortable for everyone around her, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I tried to calm her down and suggested that she take a breather outside for a few minutes. She didn't listen to me, though. Instead, she started arguing with a few of my other friends. She even made a snide remark about one of my cousins, calling her a fake for wearing a certain outfit, which was completely uncalled for. At this point, I could feel the energy in the room shifting. People were getting uncomfortable, and it was starting to feel like my birthday party was spiraling out of control. I took Emily aside and asked her what was going on. She was crying and said that she felt like I was ditching her for my other friends and that I didn't care about her anymore. I tried to explain that it wasn't like that and that I still valued our friendship, but she wasn't having it. She kept saying that I was being fake and selfish and that she didn't want to be at the party if I wasn't going to pay attention to her. I'll admit, I was really hurt. I spent so much time planning this event, and now it felt like it was being ruined by one person's emotional outburst. I told Emily that maybe it would be best if she went home for the night, because at that point, she was making the situation really tense, and I didn't want the entire night to be ruined. She didn't take it well at all. She started yelling, saying that I was kicking her out of my party just because I didn't want her there anymore, and that I was a horrible friend. She said some really hurtful things, including that I only cared about my new friends and didn't appreciate the people who had been there for me in the past. At this point, a few of my other friends and family members were witnessing the exchange, and I felt completely embarrassed. I told her that I wasn't kicking her out, but that she needed to calm down and either leave or just take some time to cool off. I felt like I had to make a decision quickly before the situation escalated further, so I gently but firmly told her that I'd rather she left. I didn't want her ruining the rest of the evening. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I was left feeling like a complete wreck. I tried to salvage the night, but it was hard to focus after everything that happened. My other friends were all supportive, but a lot of them were shocked by Emily's behavior, and it kind of cast a shadow over the whole evening. The next day, Emily texted me saying that she didn't want to talk to me anymore because I had humiliated her in front of everyone. She said that I should have understood what she was going through and that I was a fake friend for not sticking by her when she needed me most. I tried to reach out to her, but she's been ignoring my messages and hasn't responded to any of my calls. Now I'm left wondering if I handled things the wrong way. I feel like I tried to be supportive and understanding, but at the same time, I couldn't just let her ruin my entire birthday. I've been really upset about the whole situation, and I'm not sure if I did the right thing by asking her to leave. AITA for kicking my friend out of my birthday party. AITA for refusing to let my best friend attend my wedding after she stole my wedding dress idea. I, 29F, am getting married next year to my fiancée, 30M, and we've been planning everything for months now. We've got the venue booked, the guest list finalized, and everything is falling into place. My best friend, Lauren, 29F, has been by my side since we were in middle school, and I've always considered her family. We've been through so much together. High school breakups, moving to different cities for college, all the ups and downs of life. So naturally, I wanted her to be a part of my big day. She's one of my bridesmaids, and I've been excited to have her help with the planning. Everything was fine until a few weeks ago, when Lauren casually brought up her wedding plans. She's been dating her boyfriend, Ben, 31M, for about 2 years, and while they haven't gotten engaged yet, they've talked about marriage. I'm happy for them, of course. But the problem started when she started asking me for advice. She said she'd always admired my sense of style and wanted to know what I was planning to wear for my wedding. Now, I had been very specific about my vision for my wedding dress from the start. I knew exactly what I wanted, a vintage-inspired, lace-covered, off-the-shoulder gown with a long train. It was classic but modern, and it was the perfect reflection of my taste. I've been browsing bridal shops for months to find something close to what I envisioned, and was excited when I finally found the one. I told Lauren all of this, and she was immediately enthusiastic, saying it sounded beautiful and that I was going to look incredible. I didn't think much of it at the time. But then, a few days later, she texted me a picture of a wedding dress she had found, saying, "I found the dress. It's just like yours, but I think I want it in white instead of ivory. What do you think?" I was confused. The dress she sent was almost identical to the one I had picked. It wasn't a coincidence. It was the same off-the-shoulder, lace-covered style, with the exact same train and silhouette. I asked her if she was serious, and she said something like, "Yeah, I just love it so much. It's like the one you want, but I might make a few tweaks to it." I was immediately uncomfortable. I thought maybe she just liked the style and didn't realize how similar it was. So I kindly told her that I'd already found my dress and that I hoped she wouldn't pick the same one. I even told her that I'd be happy to help her find something else that matched her personality more. That's when things took a turn. Lauren got upset and said I was being ridiculous and that I should be flattered that she wanted to wear something similar to mine. She accused me of overreacting and said it wouldn't be a big deal. At first, I thought maybe I was being overly sensitive, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that she was being selfish. It felt like she was trying to copy my special day. I tried to reason with her. I told her that weddings are huge, and having 2 people wear the same type of dress would just be awkward. It would feel like I wasn't unique in my own moment. She brushed it off, telling me I was being too possessive over a dress and that it wasn't a big deal. She even suggested that we could share the same look and both look beautiful together. I let it sit for a few days, trying to figure out if I was overthinking it. But it only got worse. A week later, I was talking to my mom about the dress situation when Lauren texted me again. She sent another picture, this time of a wedding venue she was interested in. It was the same venue I had already booked for my wedding. She had literally picked the same place, and I hadn't told anyone yet that I had confirmed it. I was beyond livid at that point. I called her to ask why she was doing this. She said she had just found it recently and loved it. When I asked why she didn't tell me she was interested in it, she said, "Well, I didn't think it would matter. You've been planning your wedding for months, and I didn't want to steal your ideas, but I didn't think you'd care if I used the same venue. It's not like you own it." I told her that it wasn't just about the venue, it was about the entire situation. I felt like she was taking everything that was supposed to be unique to me and making it about her. She told me I was being dramatic and controlling, and that I needed to stop worrying about the details. But at this point, I felt like I was losing control of my own wedding. I told her that I couldn't let her attend my wedding anymore. I couldn't have her be my bridesmaid or be a part of my special day if she was going to continue to try to take over everything that was mine. I told her that she could still come to the wedding, but I needed her to respect my choices and not try to copy them. Lauren was absolutely furious. She said I was being a bridezilla and that I was taking this way too far. She even accused me of being jealous of her finding similar things. I told her that it wasn't about jealousy, it was about her crossing boundaries. She hasn't spoken to me since then. I've been feeling guilty, but I'm also really hurt. I can't shake the feeling that she's trying to overshadow me on my special day. I've always been there for her. I never thought she'd do something like this. AITA for refusing to let her be a part of my wedding after everything. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to change my hair and makeup to avoid upstaging her. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister Emily, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, smart, beautiful, athletic, and popular. I was always the quiet one, the bookworm, and the plain one by comparison. It's not that I was unpopular, but I just never seemed to live up to Emily's standards of perfection. And as a result, we've always had some tension between us. When Emily got engaged, I was excited for her, but I also had some reservations. She and I aren't exactly close, and we rarely talk about anything personal. I've always felt like she's a bit condescending toward me, and I've tried to ignore it over the years. Still, I wanted to be there for her on such an important day. I thought that if I put any of my feelings aside, I could at least show up for her wedding and make it a happy occasion. A couple of weeks ago, Emily called me and said she wanted to talk about something important. I assumed it was wedding details or something related to the event, but when I got on the phone with her, she said, "I need to ask a huge favor." Naturally, I was prepared for the usual, "Can you be a bridesmaid?" or "Can you help with this or that?" But no. Instead, Emily told me that she was worried about my appearance. She said that she had thought long and hard about it and decided it would be better if I adjusted my look for her wedding. Emily explained that she didn't want me to do anything too dramatic, but she felt that my usual hairstyle and makeup might take attention away from the bride and might even make me look like I'm trying to outshine her. I was taken aback. I've never been one to wear extravagant outfits or bold makeup, but I do like to wear my hair a certain way and have a style that's just me. For context, my hair is naturally curly, and I usually keep it long and styled in a way that suits my face shape. My makeup is fairly simple, usually just foundation, mascara, and a bit of eyeliner, nothing over the top. Emily suggested that I straighten my hair and tone down my makeup. She said in a tone that made it sound like she was being super reasonable, but to me, it felt like she was making me into something I'm not. She even went as far as to recommend specific hair and makeup artists to help me look more elegant. Honestly, I felt like she was implying I was too loud or unrefined in the way I presented myself. I told her I didn't think it was fair that she was asking me to change who I am just to make her feel more comfortable on her wedding day. I wasn't trying to make a scene, but I was genuinely hurt. I tried to explain that my look was part of my identity, and that I'd rather not attend the wedding than completely change myself for the day. Emily got upset and said that I was being dramatic. She even told me, "You know I love you, but this is my special day and I don't need to worry about you stealing the spotlight." I was pretty shocked by that. I've always been supportive of her, but she's never once made an effort to be supportive of me in return. In fact, I feel like she's often belittled me in subtle ways throughout our lives, whether it's commenting on my fashion choices or comparing me to her friends who have it all together. I try to let the conversation go, but after thinking about it for a couple of days, I decided to tell her I wouldn't be attending the wedding if she was going to continue with these requests. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I also didn't want to be pressured into changing for her. I calmly sent her a text that explained how I felt and said that I wasn't comfortable with her asking me to alter my appearance for the event. She texted back immediately, saying she was hurt and that I was being unreasonable. She told me I was making her day all about me and that I was being selfish. She even brought up how she had supported me during tough times in my life, which was a stretch, honestly, because we've never been that close. In the end, she told me that if I couldn't put my personal feelings aside for one day, then I should stay home. Now, I feel terrible. I don't want to ruin her wedding, but I also don't want to compromise who I am. I talked to my friends about the situation, and most of them think I'm in the right for standing my ground. Some, however, have suggested that I should just suck it up and go, for the sake of family harmony. I'm torn because I don't want to create a rift, but I also don't want to change myself for her, especially when I feel like she's never truly respected me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to change my hair and makeup to avoid upstaging her. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay at our house after she went off about my wife's disability. So I, 32M, have been married to my wife, Emily, 30F, for 5 years. Emily has a disability that impacts her ability to walk long distances, and she uses a wheelchair when we go out. It's something she's had since birth, so she's had to adjust and adapt her whole life. We've had a great marriage, and I try to be supportive in every way I can. We live in a house that we've modified to make it more accessible for her, and everything is good on our end. Now, Emily's sister, Sarah, 28F, is a whole different story. Sarah has always had a bit of a chip on her shoulder about Emily's disability. It's not like she's malicious or anything, but I've noticed over the years that she's never really been all that understanding. Sarah has made comments in the past about how it must be hard to be married to someone who can't do things, or it's great that you're doing well despite everything, which have made both me and Emily feel uncomfortable. We've brushed it off, but it still stings. She's never said anything outright disrespectful, but it's clear she doesn't fully get it. A couple of weeks ago, Sarah and her boyfriend, Jake, 30M, were visiting town and asked if they could stay with us for a few days. Normally, I would be happy to host, but Emily was feeling a little stressed out lately. She had some medical appointments and was dealing with a flare-up of her condition, so we had planned a quiet, low-key week at home. I told Sarah that it might not be the best timing and suggested they find a hotel or Airbnb nearby, but she insisted that they didn't want to spend money on a hotel and that it'd be nice to catch up. I told her that we would love to see them, but if they stayed with us, they'd have to respect Emily's space and our routines. Emily tends to nap often when she's in pain, and we also need to maintain a certain level of quiet in the house. I also mentioned that our home, while accessible, is still a work in progress, and it might not be the most comfortable for them. Sarah was fine with all of this and said they'd make it work. The first 2 days were fine, mostly just small talk and catching up. Emily wasn't feeling great, but tried to stay involved with conversations. Sarah seemed to keep her distance from Emily, which was fine at first. But then on the third day, things took a turn. Emily was resting in our bedroom, and I was in the kitchen making lunch. Sarah and Jake were sitting in the living room, and suddenly I overheard Sarah raising her voice. "I just don't get it," Sarah said. "How does she just sit there all day? I mean, I get that she's in a wheelchair, but there's no reason she couldn't be doing more. It just feels like she's, using it as an excuse." I was shocked, to say the least. I walked into the living room to see both of them talking, but when I entered, Sarah quickly stopped. I stood there for a moment, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. My blood was starting to boil. "What did you just say?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Sarah looked at me, and there was this almost dismissive expression on her face. I just said it's hard to understand, Like, she's been in that wheelchair for her whole life, but she could still do a lot more. She could go out more, or at least get a job. It's just frustrating sometimes. I felt my stomach drop. Emily, who had been listening from the bedroom, heard everything too. She came out of the room, looking hurt but also trying to hold it together. She said, "Sarah, you have no idea what it's like. I'm not sitting around all day. I'm dealing with things that you will never understand. You can't just look at me and think you know what I can or can't do." Sarah's face went from defensive to angry. "I'm not trying to make you feel bad, okay? I'm just saying it's tough when you act like everything is so much harder than it really is. I mean, you're not that bad off." At that point, I felt like the floor was dropping out beneath me. Emily looked devastated. I knew that she had heard these kinds of things before, but hearing it from her sister, someone she had always hoped would be supportive, was different. I walked over to Sarah and told her she needed to leave. I told her that I couldn't believe she would talk to Emily like that, especially after we had been so accommodating. Sarah got defensive, claiming I was overreacting and that I was protecting Emily too much. I told her I didn't need to explain myself and that I wasn't going to allow anyone to disrespect my wife like that. Sarah and Jake packed up and left in a huff, and I've been getting messages from her ever since. She's accusing me of blowing everything out of proportion and overreacting. She says I've ruined their relationship by choosing Emily over her and that I should have stood up for her better. Her parents are now involved, and they've been calling me to say that I need to forgive Sarah and smooth things over. They say that family is everything, and I shouldn't have kicked her out over one argument. Now I'm wondering if I went too far. I get that Sarah might not understand everything Emily goes through, but I can't just let her disrespect my wife like that. Emily has been upset about it, but she hasn't said anything about me kicking Sarah out, mostly because I think she's still processing the comments. I don't want to make her feel like she has to pick sides, but I can't just ignore what happened. So, AITA for kicking out my sister-in-law after she went off about my wife's disability? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay with us after she made a huge mess of my life for the last few years? Okay, so let me give you some background here. My husband and I, both mid-30s, have been married for 5 years, and for the last 3 years, we've been living in a pretty decent home that we worked hard to buy. It's a 3-bedroom house, nothing too fancy, but it's ours and it's in a nice neighborhood. Now, my husband's sister, Lily, early 30s, has always been a bit of a problem. She's that person who's always in and out of relationships, moving between jobs, and generally seems to be struggling with responsibility. I wouldn't call her irresponsible, but she's definitely been a bit of a train wreck for the last few years. I'm not saying this to be mean, it's just been hard to watch someone constantly make the same bad choices over and over again. A couple of years ago, Lily broke up with her long-term boyfriend, and her entire life kind of unraveled. She had been living with him, so she had nowhere to go, and our husband suggested she stay with us for a while to get herself together. We agreed, but I made it clear that I had boundaries. I didn't want her moving in permanently, and I wanted her to respect the space and privacy of our home. I also said that if she was going to stay with us, she needed to contribute in some way, whether it was helping with chores or paying a small amount toward rent. We didn't have the room for her to just live here rent-free indefinitely, and I felt like that was a reasonable expectation. She agreed, and for a while, everything seemed fine. She paid a little rent, though it was always late, helped with some chores, and seemed like she was slowly getting her life back on track. But then things started to go south. She got fired from her job for being late too many times, and instead of looking for a new one, she spent her days lounging around the house. It got to the point where I'd come home from work and she'd be lying on the couch, watching Netflix or scrolling through social media. I started to get frustrated because, as much as I wanted to be a supportive sister-in-law, I was also juggling my own job, housework, and other responsibilities. My husband, while well-meaning, didn't really see the problem. He's a little more laid back about things, and he kept telling me to be patient with her. I tried to be, but it was hard to see her living under our roof, not contributing, and treating it like it was a vacation home. After a few months of this, we hit a breaking point. Lily started to invite friends over late at night. Not just a couple of friends, sometimes it was a whole group playing loud music, getting drunk, and essentially turning our house into a party zone. I would try to tell her that it wasn't okay, but she'd brush me off, saying I was overreacting. My husband would try to intervene, but he didn't want to upset her, so his efforts were half-hearted at best. Things escalated after one particularly bad weekend. Lily invited a guy she had just started dating over, and they ended up having a loud argument in the middle of the night. It was so bad that I had to step in, but when I did, she turned on me and accused me of trying to control her life. The argument was so heated that I ended up storming off to our bedroom and closing the door, not wanting to deal with it anymore. That was the tipping point for me. I was done. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine when it wasn't. My husband and I had a serious conversation, and I told him that I didn't feel comfortable with her living with us anymore. I told him that I was at my breaking point and needed her to move out. I gave him an ultimatum. Either Lily moves out, or I would leave. I know that sounds extreme, but it was how I felt in the moment. I had been trying to be the reasonable one, trying to support her, but it wasn't working. My husband was upset, but agreed that something needed to change. He spoke with Lily, and I thought it was going to be resolved. But Lily was furious when she found out that I was the one who had pushed for her to move out. She accused me of being selfish and not caring about her. She said I was being unfair and that I should just let her stay longer until she got back on her feet. We were at a crossroads. I wanted my space back. I wanted peace in my own home. I didn't feel like it was selfish to set boundaries after everything I had been through. But my husband, who had always been a little more sympathetic to her, thought I should have been more patient. He told me I was being too hard on her and that she didn't have anywhere else to go. I get that, but at the same time, I've been trying to help for months, and it felt like I was the one doing all the compromising while she did nothing to improve her situation. Eventually, Lily moved out, but things have been tense. She's barely spoken to me since, and whenever she does, it's usually to accuse me of being a bad sister-in-law. At family gatherings, I can feel the tension. My husband feels torn between supporting his sister and supporting me. He hasn't said much, but I can tell he's frustrated with the whole situation. Lily has told him that I'm selfish and don't care about family, and now he's starting to question if I was too harsh. I get that family is important, but I feel like I've been extremely patient for a long time, and at some point, I had to stand up for myself. I don't want to be responsible for her life, and I don't want to keep enabling her bad decisions. But now I'm left wondering, am I the asshole for drawing a line and refusing to let her stay with us any longer? So, AITA for pushing my sister-in-law out of our house and for not letting her stay longer? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me for not agreeing to pay for it? I, 28M, have a sister, Emily, 30F, who is getting married in a few months. We've always been close, growing up in a family where my parents, mid-50s, had their hands full with work and supporting us. So, Emily and I were pretty much each other's support system through a lot of tough times. But now, things have become a lot more complicated. Emily got engaged a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 32M, and right away, she started talking about how expensive the wedding was going to be. From the start, I thought she was aiming to do something really extravagant, but honestly, I thought that was just wedding talk. Like, you know how people say they want the wedding of the century, but then settle for something more reasonable? Well, that was not the case with Emily. She started giving me details about her dream wedding. A destination wedding in a tropical country, a private resort, 200 guests, and all the bells and whistles. She'd been saving for a while, but even with her savings, she was looking at needing a pretty huge chunk of money. I thought, okay, that's a lot, but it's her day and her choice. It wasn't until she dropped the bomb on me that she wanted me to help out with the cost that I started getting a bit uncomfortable. I have a good job in tech, so I'm not broke, but I'm also not swimming in cash. I live in a modest apartment, I've got student loans, and I'm trying to save for my own future. I don't mind helping people when I can, but I've also had to be careful with my finances. So when Emily came to me a few months ago, asking me to contribute $10,000 toward the wedding, I was shocked. I was honest with her and said that while I loved her and wanted her to have a beautiful wedding, there was no way I could afford to give her that much. I explained my financial situation and that I wasn't in a position to just throw that kind of money around without seriously jeopardizing my own financial stability. I also mentioned that if she was really set on this expensive wedding, I'd be more than happy to help in other ways, like organizing things, running errands, or offer my time to help with anything she needed. But the money, especially such a large amount, was just out of my reach. Emily did not take that well. She was pretty upset, but I thought, okay, let's have a calm conversation about it and work something out. But no, she got more and more hostile. She said that if I couldn't support her financially, then maybe I didn't care about her enough to be part of her special day. That stung. I told her I loved her, but that I couldn't just throw money around for her wedding, especially when I didn't agree with the extravagance of it all. I also pointed out that my other siblings, a brother and a younger sister, were not being asked to contribute that much money, so why was I singled out? A week later, I got a message from Emily saying she was disappointed in me and that it wasn't just about the money. It was about being a supportive sibling. She said that since I couldn't offer the financial help she needed, I wasn't being supportive of her wedding and that maybe it was best if I didn't come at all. She said that she didn't want someone at the wedding who was begrudgingly there and that I was making her feel like a burden. She ended the message by saying, "If you can't be a part of this day, then I guess we don't need you there." I was shocked. I felt like I had done everything I could to be supportive, even offering my time, and suddenly, I was being told I wasn't welcome. I tried to reach out to talk it through, but she didn't want to engage with me. Her fiancé Mark also got involved, backing her up and saying that if I didn't want to help, then I shouldn't expect to be included. At this point, I was furious. This felt like emotional manipulation. I wasn't the one demanding money, I was the one being asked for it, and I had been completely upfront about my limitations. I had always thought that family should be there for each other, but now it felt like she was trying to turn me into a walking checkbook. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the times we'd supported each other through hardships, and now, suddenly, because I didn't have the money she wanted, I wasn't good enough to be at her wedding. I didn't want to give up on our relationship over this, so I decided to step back. I told her that if she truly felt that way about me, then I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of her life under these conditions. She didn't respond, and a few days later, I was officially uninvited from the wedding. The message was simple. You're no longer invited, and we don't want to have a conversation about it anymore. That's when it hit me. I had been cut off by my own sister because I didn't have the money to contribute to her dream wedding. I felt like I was being punished for not being able to meet her financial demands. Now, the rest of the family is involved, and they're all siding with her. They say I should just pay up because it's important to her and that I should have found a way to help, even if it meant making some sacrifices. My parents are disappointed in me too, and keep telling me I should make it right if I want to stay in the family's good graces. They all think that because I'm the oldest, I should have the responsibility to set a good example and support my sister. But I don't feel like I should have to sacrifice my financial security for her to have her perfect wedding. I've offered my time, my help in other ways, but this doesn't seem to matter. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and standing my ground when she uninvited me for not agreeing to it? AITA for not allowing my sister to bring her kids to my wedding after she called me selfish for not letting her kids be the flower girl and ring bearer? So some background. I, 27F, am getting married in about 2 months to my fiancé, 29M. It's been a long engagement, and we've been planning this wedding for over a year now. I've always had a very specific vision for my wedding, nothing too extravagant, but there are some things that are really important to me. One of those things is that the wedding party is small, consisting only of close friends and immediate family. I want it to be intimate, and that includes the number of people involved in the ceremony itself. I have a sister, Lily, 32F, who has 2 kids, a son, 5, and a daughter, 3. Lily and I have had a strained relationship over the years. She's always been a bit dramatic, I guess. We've had our disagreements, but we've always been able to work through things until recently. The tension started around when I got engaged. Lily made a big deal about not being asked to be my maid of honor, which, to be honest, I didn't ask her because of past issues we've had. I love her, but I felt like we weren't close enough for me to ask her to be my MOH, and I asked my best friend instead. Since then, things have gotten worse. Lily has constantly made passive-aggressive comments about my wedding planning. She's criticized everything from the venue to the dress I chose, and even the guest list. There have been a lot of small comments like, I don't know why you're having such an expensive wedding, or, well, not everyone can afford a wedding like yours, which have really started to annoy me, but I've tried to keep the peace. Now, the big issue has come up. Lily called me last week and told me she had been thinking about the wedding and felt that my kids deserve a special role in it. She went on to suggest that her 5-year-old son should be the ring bearer and her 3-year-old daughter should be the flower girl. I was a bit taken aback because my wedding is really intimate, and I've already chosen the people who will be involved in the ceremony. I've asked my best friend to be my maid of honor and my cousin to be a bridesmaid. My fiancé has a best man and a few groomsmen, but there aren't any kids involved in the ceremony. We aren't having a large wedding, and I had just planned to have one of my best friend's kids as a flower girl because she's been a big part of my life and my wedding journey. I told Lily I appreciated the suggestion, but that I didn't think it was necessary. I explained that the roles were already filled, and I didn't want to add any more people into the ceremony. She didn't take it well. She immediately started saying how hurt she was that I wouldn't include her kids, especially since they're such an important part of my life. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal, but she wasn't hearing it. Then, she dropped the bombshell. She accused me of being selfish. She said that I was putting my wedding above family, and that it wasn't fair for me to exclude my niece and nephew. She went on to say that I was making her feel like she wasn't important and that I was being childish by not letting her kids be part of the ceremony. She even said that it would be a lost opportunity for me to make memories with them, and that I'd regret it. I've been stewing over this for the last few days because it really hurt. She went from offering a suggestion to calling me selfish and childish in a matter of minutes. I've been trying to maintain a healthy boundary with her and not let her dictate the terms of my wedding, but now she's making me feel guilty. She keeps texting me, trying to convince me to change my mind, and her comments are getting more pointed. The worst part is, I feel like I can't even talk to my parents about it, because they'll just take her side. My mom already called me this morning to ask if I was sure about my decision and to suggest I reconsider for family harmony. I've been telling my fiancé about everything, and he supports me 100%. He agrees that Lily is being unreasonable and that it's my wedding, not hers. But I still feel guilty. I love my niece and nephew, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm being too harsh. I don't want to be the type of person who shuts people out, but I also don't want to let Lily's demands ruin the vision I've been working on for so long. So, AITA for not allowing my sister's kids to be in my wedding after she called me selfish for not giving them roles in the ceremony? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my apartment after she got kicked out of her boyfriend's place. I-28F have a younger sister, Jess, who is 24. Jess has always been kind of a free spirit. She doesn't like to follow rules, doesn't care about long-term planning, and tends to make decisions impulsively. It's caused some friction in our relationship over the years, but I've always tried to be there for her when she needs me. That said, I'm not the kind of person who can just jump into helping without boundaries. I've learned the hard way that if I don't set clear limits, Jess will take advantage of my kindness. A few weeks ago, Jess called me, and her voice was shaky. She said she needed to talk, so I invited her to my place. When she showed up, she looked a little worse for wear. Her hair was messy, she didn't have much makeup on, and she seemed pretty upset. She sat down, took a deep breath, and then told me that she had been kicked out of her boyfriend's apartment. She didn't go into details right away, but she said things just didn't work out and that she needed a place to stay for a while. Jess said she had nowhere else to go and that she was really embarrassed. Now, I'm not heartless, but I also know my sister. She can get herself into situations and not think through the consequences, so I wanted to know more before I agreed to let her stay with me. I asked her what happened with her boyfriend and why she got kicked out. Jess was reluctant at first, but eventually she admitted that it wasn't just a breakup. They'd been fighting a lot, and she had done some things she regretted. She didn't go into detail about what exactly happened, but she made it sound like it was partly her fault. At this point, I was hesitant. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment, and while I care about her, I'm also someone who values my space and peace of mind. I told her I needed some time to think about it. I didn't want to make any rash decisions, and honestly, I was unsure whether it was a good idea to let her move in. Jess has stayed with me before, but those times were always temporary, and we'd clashed a lot. She's messy. She doesn't have a set routine, and she tends to take advantage of my hospitality. She pleaded with me, saying that she didn't have any other options and that she just needed a safe place to crash for a couple of weeks while she figured things out. I told her I'd think about it and get back to her, but I was feeling really torn. On one hand, I want to be there for her, but on the other hand, I really value my peace and the structure I have in my life. After thinking it over for a few days, I called her back and said that I would let her stay, but there were conditions. I told her that she couldn't just stay indefinitely, that she needed to start looking for a new place and work on figuring things out. I also told her that she had to respect my space and the boundaries I set. This meant no bringing over her friends, no staying up late making noise, and she had to contribute to groceries or rent, at least in a small way. I said that I didn't want it to be like the last time when she just lounged around and didn't take responsibility for anything. She agreed, saying she understood and that she would stick to the rules. The first week went fine, but after that, things started to get difficult. Jess is the type of person who has trouble sticking to schedules, and I quickly realized that she wasn't following through on the things she promised. She would stay up late, playing music, leaving the bathroom a mess, and even started bringing her friends over without asking. I had to remind her multiple times about the rules, but it felt like she was always testing me. Then, about 2 weeks in, I came home one evening to find a bunch of her friends hanging out in my living room, eating my food, and making a mess. Jess wasn't home at the time, but I was so angry. I texted her to come home immediately, and when she showed up, I confronted her. She apologized, but then tried to downplay it, saying, "It's just a few friends, and I didn't think you'd mind." I told her that I absolutely did mind, and this was exactly what I didn't want. I asked her to leave the apartment for a while and to figure out her next steps, because I couldn't keep doing this. She got upset and accused me of being unsympathetic, saying that I was being too rigid and a control freak. She said she was going through a tough time and needed support, but I was more focused on rules than her well-being. That hit me hard, but I stood my ground. I told her that I didn't owe her a place to stay forever, and if she couldn't respect my home, she had to find somewhere else to go. Jess stormed out, and we haven't really spoken much since. A few days ago, I got a call from our mom, who said Jess had been in tears when she called her and was upset that I had kicked her out. Mom said I was being too harsh and that I should just let her stay with me. I told Mom that Jess was an adult and she needed to start taking responsibility for her actions. Mom said I should be more understanding, but I just felt like I was being asked to choose between my sister's comfort and my own peace of mind. Now, I'm feeling guilty. I love Jess, but I feel like I set reasonable boundaries, and I don't know if I did the right thing. AITA for kicking her out of my apartment and not just letting her stay until she figures things out? Should I have been more lenient and understanding, or was I right to stick to my rules? AITA for not wanting to be my sister's maid of honor after she didn't respect my boundaries? I, 29F, have a sister, Emma, 26F, who I've always had a bit of a complicated relationship with. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, we started drifting apart. I'm more of a reserved person, and I've always preferred a quieter, low-key lifestyle. Emma, on the other hand, is super extroverted and tends to thrive in social situations. As we got into our adult years, the differences between us became more apparent. Still, we always managed to maintain a decent relationship, but things took a turn when she got engaged. Emma's fiancé, Dave, 28M, proposed to her a little over a year ago. I was happy for her, of course, but the planning for the wedding quickly became a nightmare. I don't know if it's just me getting older or what, but I've started to value my peace and personal space a lot more. Emma, however, was the opposite. She was all about bigger, better, and more extravagant. She wanted a huge wedding with all the bells and whistles. I told her from the start that I wasn't the type of person who enjoyed being the center of attention, and I definitely didn't want to be involved in any extravagant wedding plans. I offered to help with some smaller things like organizing guest lists and helping with invites, but I made it clear that I wasn't going to be part of the full-on wedding planning circus. Emma seemed to respect that at first, but the more she dove into the planning, the more she seemed to forget my boundaries. She started calling me at all hours of the day, asking for my opinion on things I had no interest in, like the design of the centerpieces or the shade of pink for the bridesmaid dresses. I kept telling her I didn't care about those things and to ask someone else, but she'd insist, saying things like, "You're my sister, you should care," or "You're going to be my maid of honor. It's your job to help with these things." I wasn't planning on being her maid of honor at all. I had already been upfront about the fact that I didn't want to be in the wedding party, mainly because of my aversion to large social events, the pressure of public speaking. I absolutely do not want to make a speech, and the emotional exhaustion that comes with weddings. But despite this, Emma kept bringing it up, and I felt like she was guilt-tripping me into agreeing. The final straw came a few weeks ago when she invited me to a bridal shower planning meeting, despite me already telling her I wasn't comfortable with large group activities. While I politely told her I couldn't make it, she acted offended and said, "You're my sister. Why wouldn't you want to help me plan my bridal shower? It's not just about you, you know." I was frustrated, but I told her again that I couldn't do it. I made it clear that I wasn't trying to be a bad sister. I just didn't have the energy for all of the wedding-related things she was asking me to do. I suggested that she consider asking someone else to be her maid of honor, someone who enjoyed being in the spotlight and helping with the big wedding events. Well, that didn't go over well at all. Emma started crying and said that if I wasn't going to be her maid of honor, I clearly didn't care about her wedding or her. She told me I was being selfish and that it was a once-in-a-lifetime event, so I should suck it up for her sake. I felt terrible, but I was also getting really worn out. It felt like she was completely disregarding my feelings just because she wanted me to play a role I wasn't comfortable with. A few days later, Emma called me again, this time in a more calm tone, and said that if I didn't want to be her maid of honor, that was fine, but she really wanted me to at least be in the bridal party as a bridesmaid. I told her I'd think about it, but after taking some time to reflect, I realized I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I've always struggled with social anxiety, and being in a wedding party would put me in situations where I'd have to be the center of attention. I knew that would cause me so much stress, and I didn't want to put myself through it. I called Emma back and told her I couldn't be a bridesmaid either. I apologized and reiterated that it wasn't because I didn't love her, but because I knew my limits and I couldn't take on that kind of responsibility. I suggested that she could still count on me for other things, like helping with any behind-the-scenes stuff or offering emotional support. Emma's response was devastating. She told me she was so disappointed in me and that it felt like I was abandoning her at one of the most important moments of her life. She said I was being incredibly selfish and that she didn't understand why I couldn't just get over myself for once. She then accused me of making everything about me instead of supporting her during her big day. I felt like I tried to be supportive in every way I could, but no matter what I did, it was never enough for her. I've been thinking about it for days now, and I'm really hurt by how she's treating me. She's been cold and distant since our last conversation, and part of me feels like she's trying to make me feel guilty for standing my ground. Now, the rest of the family is getting involved. My mom has called me twice, trying to talk me into reconsidering, saying that Emma is just emotional and that I should put family first. My dad is on my side, though, saying that I should do what makes me happy and not let anyone guilt-trip me into something I'm not comfortable with. So, AITA for not wanting to be my sister's maid of honor and ultimately not being part of her bridal party, I just don't think I can handle it. And I feel like my boundaries are being completely disregarded. Am I being selfish, or am I justified in saying no? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move into my house after her divorce. So I, 30F, am married to my husband, Matt, 32M, and we live in a relatively small but cozy home that we bought a few years ago. It's the first home either of us has owned, and while it's not anything extravagant, it's our little piece of stability and happiness. I'm a freelance graphic designer, so I work from home most of the time, and Matt works in finance with a decent salary, so we're pretty comfortable, but we're not rolling in cash by any means. Here's the situation. Matt's sister, Erica, 28F, has been married for 5 years to her husband, Tom, 30M. They were one of those couples that seemed perfect on the surface, both good-looking with good jobs and a pretty Instagram life. But recently, things fell apart. Erica found out that Tom had been cheating on her with someone from work. She was devastated, and understandably, they divorced. It's been about a month since the split, and Erica has been struggling to figure out where to go next. Now, here's the part that's causing the issue. Erica called me last week, pretty emotional, saying she needed a place to stay for a while. She explained that she couldn't afford rent on her own and didn't want to be a burden on her parents, who were already helping her out in other ways. I felt bad for her, but I wasn't immediately on board with the idea of letting her move in. Matt and I had always discussed keeping our home a private space for just the two of us, especially since we work from home. Having anyone else move in would disrupt our daily routine, and honestly, I didn't feel comfortable with it. However, when I expressed my concerns to Matt, he seemed torn. He wanted to help his sister, and he was leaning towards offering her a place to stay for a few weeks. I understood his desire to support her, but at the same time, I felt that our home shouldn't be the first place she turns to, especially given that she had other options. I brought up the fact that it would cause tension between us, and it would definitely affect my work routine, since I'd be sharing a house with someone else all day. But Matt seemed to think I was being a bit harsh, and that it was a temporary situation. A few days later, Erica came over to talk in person. She cried a lot, explaining how hard everything was and how she didn't know where to go. She said she couldn't go back to her parents because they were dealing with their own issues, and she didn't want to be a burden to them. I felt terrible for her, but I still wasn't convinced. I told her that while I empathized with what she was going through, I didn't think it was a good idea for her to move in with us. She looked shocked and hurt, and I could tell she wasn't expecting that response from me. I told her she could stay with a close friend of hers who had a spare room or even consider getting a short-term rental somewhere. I also offered to help her find a therapist since she seemed really distraught, and I thought it might help her more in the long run. Erica left the house visibly upset, and that's when the backlash started. Matt was disappointed in me, and his frustration grew over the next few days. He said I was being cold-hearted and that I wasn't considering how much Erica was suffering. He even mentioned that it was family, and I should be willing to make some sacrifices for her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to be unsympathetic, but that it wasn't just about letting her stay here. It would disrupt our lives, and I didn't think it would be fair to either of us in the long run. Since then, Matt has been distant, and I feel like he's been resenting me a little bit. Erica reached out again, asking if I had reconsidered, and I reiterated my position. She got really angry this time and said I was choosing my comfort over family. That really stung. I started second-guessing myself. Was I being too selfish? Matt hasn't really talked to me about it directly since, but it's clear that it's causing tension. My friends have been divided on this. Some of them say I'm right. It's my home, and I shouldn't feel obligated to take someone in just because they're family. Others think I should have just said yes because it's a temporary situation and I'm being too rigid. I don't want to make things harder for Matt, but I also feel like I have a right to set boundaries in my own home. I'm not sure if I'm being unreasonable or if I'm right to want to maintain some privacy and peace. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with us after her divorce. AITA for exposing my sister-in-law's affair at my wedding, ruining it. So, this is a long story, but I really need some perspective because I've been feeling conflicted ever since my wedding, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong here. Let me give some background first. I, 28F, married my husband, James, 30M, earlier this year. We've been together for 6 years, and it was a dream come true for both of us. We're both super close with our families, and both sides were incredibly supportive during the whole wedding process. James has a sister, Rachel, 32F, who's been married to her husband, Tom, 34M, for 4 years. They have 2 kids, and from the outside, everything seemed fine. Rachel and I have never been super close, but we get along just fine. We've always had a somewhat distant relationship, but I never really thought anything of it. We don't see each other often, but when we do, it's civil, and I was hoping she would be a decent maid of honor at my wedding. Now, the lead up to the wedding. It was a big deal to me, and I had a lot of people helping out, but I won't lie, the whole thing had its stress points. A few weeks before the wedding, Rachel started acting a little weird. She became distant and barely interacted with me. At first, I figured maybe she was going through something personal or had a lot going on, but it was odd. When I'd ask her if everything was okay, she'd always brush me off with a, "Yeah, I'm fine, don't worry about it." Fast forward to the wedding day. The ceremony was perfect. Everything went smoothly. But then came the reception, and that's when things started to take a turn. I noticed Rachel and Tom having some strange interactions. They weren't acting like a couple at all. No hugging, no kissing, not even small talk. But I didn't think much of it at the time. However, as the night went on, I caught a glimpse of Rachel in the parking lot, and she was standing in front of her car, talking to a man I didn't recognize. They were having what looked like a serious conversation. It was odd, but I just assumed maybe he was a friend or someone she was talking to about something work-related. The next part is where things get tricky. Later in the evening, Rachel came back into the reception hall, looking a little flustered. I didn't think much of it, but as the night wore on, I noticed her sneaking glances at her phone. I tried to ignore it, but something about the whole situation made me uneasy. Around 11:30 p.m., just before the cake cutting, James pulled me aside and told me that he'd seen something that made him uncomfortable. Apparently, while I was in the bathroom, he saw Rachel texting someone and looking at her phone with a very concerned expression. Now, at this point, I was starting to get suspicious. I didn't want to believe anything bad was happening, but James insisted that it looked like Rachel was hiding something. He didn't go into specifics, but he thought she might be involved in an affair. I tried to stay calm, but I was getting a bit freaked out. I knew Rachel had issues in her marriage, but I never expected her to be cheating. Here's where I'm really torn about my actions. I knew there was something off, and I decided I needed to know for sure. I went up to Rachel, who was standing near the dance floor, and I asked her point blank if she was seeing someone else. Rachel went completely pale, and she started stammering. She tried to deny it, but I could tell she was lying. In that moment, I didn't want to just let it go. I felt like if she was doing something shady, the truth needed to come out, especially on a day as important as my wedding. Without thinking, I asked her again, and I pointed out the man in the parking lot who was still hanging around the reception. Rachel broke down in front of me and admitted that she was having an affair with that man. The whole room was watching at this point, and people started whispering. I was devastated. This wasn't just any affair, it was with someone I knew. The guy was a mutual friend of the family, someone who had been invited to the wedding because Rachel had vouchered for him. It was a mess. I honestly couldn't hold back at that point. I didn't want to ruin the day, but I felt betrayed, and I was also just so overwhelmed with anger. I grabbed the microphone from the DJ and called out Rachel in front of everyone. I told the whole room about her affair, naming names and everything. I even confronted her about how she had the audacity to come to my wedding, pretending everything was fine with her husband when she was clearly sneaking around. It was chaos. Rachel's husband, Tom, was furious and devastated. He stormed out, and Rachel was a wreck. The entire mood of the night shifted, and it felt like all my wedding joy evaporated in an instant. People were mad at me, some saying I shouldn't have aired family drama at my wedding. Others said I did the right thing, as it was clear Rachel wasn't going to come clean on her own. Afterward, I got a lot of messages from friends and family. Some of them said I should have handled it privately, maybe pulled Rachel aside and confronted her one-on-one. Others said I was right to expose her because it was a betrayal to everyone in the family, and it wasn't something I could just ignore. Now, I feel guilty because it was supposed to be my special day, but I also feel justified in what I did. I don't know if I could have kept that kind of secret while everyone was acting like everything was fine. But I'm starting to question if I crossed the line. Was it really my place to expose Rachel like that, especially on such an important day? AITA for ruining my wedding by exposing my sister-in-law's affair? AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me after she broke my trust? So, a bit of backstory. I'm 29F, and I have a younger sister, Ella, who's 25. Growing up, we weren't incredibly close. We had our moments, but overall, we were pretty different people. I was always the responsible one, focused on my career, my finances, and generally keeping my life together. Ella, on the other hand, was a lot more carefree, a little rebellious, and often in some kind of drama. Nothing too extreme, but she's always been more of a free spirit, often jumping from one thing to the next. A couple of years ago, Ella moved in with me after a particularly bad breakup. She was in a toxic relationship for about 2 years, and when it ended, she had nowhere to go. I agreed to let her stay with me temporarily, figuring it'd be a couple of months at most while she got back on her feet. At the time, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I felt bad for her, so I told her she could crash with me until she sorted things out. The problem started when her temporary stay turned into nearly a year. She wasn't really making much progress in terms of finding a job or getting her own place. She would bounce between temp jobs, usually quitting after a few weeks because she wasn't feeling it or she didn't click with the company. I get it, jobs aren't always perfect, but it felt like she wasn't even trying to make it work. Meanwhile, I was footing the bills for all of the living expenses. She offered to pay rent, but it was always in the form of small, inconsistent amounts, and often I had to remind her. I was frustrated, but I tried to be patient. Family, right? But this became a bigger issue when she started having people over. At first, it was just a few friends coming by to hang out, but it quickly escalated. One night, she invited a guy she had been seeing over, and he stayed the night. The next morning, I wake up to find him passed out on the couch, and I had to work. I didn't say anything at first because I wasn't sure if it was just a one-time thing, but it wasn't. It happened more and more, and it started to make me uncomfortable. It wasn't just the fact that she was bringing people over without asking. It was the constant disregard for my space and my boundaries. There were times when I come home to find random strangers in my living room, drinking my wine, or using my stuff without asking. I finally had a conversation with her about it. I told her I was uncomfortable with the constant influx of people and how I felt like I wasn't getting any privacy or respect in my own home. She got defensive, of course, saying I was being uptight and needed to relax. I told her I wasn't being uptight. I was just asking for basic respect and consideration. She didn't take it well, but eventually, she promised to be more mindful. A few months went by, and things seemed to improve a bit. But then, another issue popped up. Ella had been talking about moving out for a while, but nothing ever seemed to come of it. She'd look at apartments, tell me she found the perfect place, and then nothing. She'd say the place fell through, or that it was too expensive, or whatever the excuse of the week was. I tried to be understanding, but it started to feel like she was just using me as a safety net and wasn't really trying to make a move toward independence. Then, 6 months ago, things took a turn. Ella asked me if she could borrow some money to cover rent for a few months. Apparently, she had gotten into some trouble with her credit card and was behind on a few bills. I wasn't thrilled, but I agreed to help her out with the understanding that she'd pay me back as soon as she could. We agreed that I'd give her $3,000 to cover rent and that she'd pay me back over the next few months. Well, as you can guess, she didn't. Months passed, and she didn't make any attempt to pay me back. I gently reminded her a few times, but the excuses kept coming. I'm waiting for my paycheck. I'll send it next week. I need to get my finances in order first. It was the same cycle over and over, and it started to feel like she had no intention of ever paying me back. Finally, I reached a breaking point. About 3 months ago, I sat down with her and said, "Listen, I need you to either pay me back or make a plan to do so. I've been more than patient, and this is starting to feel unfair." She freaked out, said I was being too harsh, that I should trust her, and that she would pay me back soon. But I was done. I told her that I couldn't keep living like this, and that it was time for her to figure things out on her own. A week later, she came to me and asked if she could move in with me again, this time for a little while to get back on her feet after another breakup. I was beyond frustrated. I felt like I had been used and taken advantage of, and I wasn't about to go down that road again. I told her no, that I couldn't let her stay with me anymore. She got upset and accused me of not being supportive, of abandoning her when she needed me most. She said I was a terrible sister, that I had no compassion, and that I was just holding on to petty grudges over a little bit of money. I explained that it wasn't about the money, it was about trust. I didn't feel like I could rely on her, and I didn't want to keep enabling her behavior. She left, and I haven't heard from her much since. We've had a few texts, but she's still angry and has told me I'm being unreasonable. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after everything that's happened. I just want to make sure I'm not being too hard on her, but at the same time, I feel like I've been more than generous and patient. AITA for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she made a scene. So here's the situation. I, 27F, have always had a pretty good relationship with my family, but there's always been a bit of tension with my sister, Emily, 29F. Emily and I are very different people, and I guess we've always clashed in some way. I'm more reserved, quiet, and I prefer things to be organized and planned out. Emily, on the other hand, is a lot more spontaneous, loud, and likes to make everything about her. It's not that I don't love her, but her behavior can be exhausting at times. I'm getting married to my fiancé, Jake, 30M, in a few months. Jake and I have been together for over 5 years, and I can't wait to marry him. We've been planning this wedding for a long time, and I've been very involved in every aspect of it. I wanted everything to be perfect. No drama, no surprises. My family knows this, and they've all been pretty supportive of our plans. Now, here's where the drama starts. A few weeks ago, Emily started acting a bit off. She's always been a little bit of drama queen, but lately, she seemed extra stressed. I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed me off. I didn't think too much of it. People get stressed before weddings, right? Well, a few days later, I got a message from Emily saying that she had important news and that we needed to talk. I thought maybe she was going to tell me she was pregnant or something, which she'd been hinting at for a while, so I agreed to meet her for coffee. When we sat down, she hit me with this. She was going to wear a white dress to my wedding. Yes, you read that right. She told me that she had bought a white dress for my wedding and was planning on wearing it. I was completely floored. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, but she was dead serious. She said she didn't care if it was traditionally inappropriate, and she deserved to have a moment too. Apparently, she had been feeling overlooked in my wedding planning, and wearing a white dress was her way of reclaiming some attention. I was honestly speechless. I told her that wearing white was something that was meant for the bride, and I asked her to reconsider. I said I'd appreciate it if she could choose a different color out of respect for me and the significance of the day. I explained that this wasn't about her. It was about me and Jake starting our lives together. Emily got upset and accused me of being selfish, saying that I was making everything about me and not thinking about her feelings. She said I should get over it because she was just trying to have fun. I tried to stay calm and told her that I couldn't allow her to wear white at my wedding. I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings, but I didn't want her overshadowing me on my big day. It was my wedding, not hers. She left the meeting in a huff, and I thought that would be the end of it. Fast forward to the week before the wedding. I was at my final dress fitting, and everything was going smoothly until my phone started blowing up with messages. It was from my mom and a few other family members, all telling me that Emily had been ranting about me to everyone. She was telling them that I was being a bridezilla and ruining her life by not letting her wear the white dress. She claimed I was being selfish and that I was trying to control everything about the wedding. She even told my mom that she wouldn't attend the wedding if I didn't let her wear the dress. I was getting stressed out, and Jake was frustrated with the whole situation too. But we decided to stick to our guns and not let Emily dictate the wedding. Jake and I agreed that we'd talk to her one last time, but if she didn't drop the issue, we were going to have to set a boundary. The day before the wedding, Emily called me again. She said she was hurt and that I was ruining our relationship over a dress. I told her that it wasn't just about the dress, it was about respect. I told her she was welcome to come to the wedding, but she couldn't wear white. I said I hoped she would still come to support me, but if she couldn't respect that boundary, I didn't want her there. She started crying, saying that I was being unreasonable and that I didn't care about her. She said she was done with me and wasn't coming to the wedding. I was honestly heartbroken, but I couldn't let her ruin my day. I said goodbye and hung up. The next day, everything was chaotic with the wedding preparations, but we made it through. The ceremony was beautiful, and I was so happy to marry Jake. However, during the reception, I got a call from my mom. She said Emily had shown up anyway, uninvited, wearing the white dress. I was furious. My heart sank when I saw Emily standing there, trying to act like everything was normal. She didn't even apologize or acknowledge that she had completely ignored my wishes. I walked up to her, asked her to step outside, and told her that if she didn't leave immediately, I'd call security. She looked at me, shocked, and tried to argue, but I told her she wasn't welcome at my wedding in that dress and that she needed to go. She got upset and started crying, saying I was being horrible. The whole thing escalated, and I ended up asking her to leave the venue entirely. She called me all sorts of names and stormed out. It was embarrassing, and I honestly felt awful, but I didn't want her to ruin my day any further. Later, my mom and a few other relatives told me I'd overreacted. They said Emily's behavior was out of line, but I should have just let it slide to avoid drama. Some said that I should have at least let her stay at the reception, even if she was wearing the white dress, because family is family. Now I'm really torn. I feel like I did what I had to do to protect my wedding day, but I also feel guilty about kicking her out. Am I the asshole for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she wore a white dress and caused a scene? I just wanted a peaceful day, and I feel like I'm being blamed for everything. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she insulted my fiancé and called my wedding a joke? I, 28F, have an older sister, Emily, 32F, who has always been the wild child of the family. She's super spontaneous, impulsive, and tends to prioritize her own desires over other people's feelings. I've always been the more responsible one, so growing up, there was a lot of tension between us. I've tried to be supportive, but it's hard when it feels like I'm constantly walking on eggshells around her. I recently got engaged to my fiancé, Sam, 30M, and we've been planning our wedding for the past year. It's been stressful, but we're both really excited. We wanted something small and intimate, close family and friends, maybe 50 people total. We're not the kind of couple who want a huge, lavish wedding. It's more about the people we love being there to celebrate our commitment. I knew that Emily would have opinions about the wedding. She's always been vocal about not liking traditional things, and I expected her to make comments about our choice to have a more low-key celebration. However, I wasn't prepared for how hurtful things would get. It started when I invited Emily over to my place to talk about the wedding details. We hadn't had a heart-to-heart in a while, and I was hoping to keep the peace. I thought she'd be happy for me, especially since she's my sister. I was wrong. During the conversation, Emily started questioning why we were having such a boring wedding. She asked me why I wasn't doing something more extravagant like some of our cousins had done. I explained that we weren't interested in spending an insane amount of money for one day. We wanted something meaningful, not a show. That's when things took a turn. Emily scoffed and said, "Well, you've always been basic, so I guess it makes sense." I was caught off guard but tried to brush it off, not wanting to start an argument. But then she made a comment about Sam. She said, "You could do better. I mean, Sam's fine, but he's kind of boring, isn't he? He just doesn't seem like the type of guy you'd end up with. You always said you wanted someone adventurous and spontaneous." I was furious, but I kept my cool. I told her that Sam was exactly who I wanted, and he was everything I needed in a partner. She didn't seem to care, though, and kept going. At one point, she even said, "Honestly, I don't know why you're bothering with a wedding. It's just a formality. You two don't seem like the type to stick to old traditions anyway. Maybe you're just doing this for the pictures." That was the last straw for me. I tried to explain that our wedding wasn't for anyone but us, but she wasn't listening. She just kept interrupting and belittling our choices, even going as far as saying she didn't see the point in attending the wedding at all. It felt like a slap in the face. After that, I told her that I didn't want her to be involved in the wedding anymore. I asked her to respect our wishes and our relationship. I told her that if she couldn't support us, she shouldn't come. I was really upset, but I figured it would be better to set boundaries than let her continue to undermine me and Sam. Things got worse from there. A few days later, I received a message from Emily asking if she could come stay at my house for a few days, as she was having some personal issues with her boyfriend. I'm always one to help my family, so I told her that she was welcome to stay, but she needed to be respectful while she was here. When she arrived, it was clear that she was still angry with me. She barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was only to make sarcastic comments. One night, after Sam and I had a quiet dinner at home, Emily started mocking us. She said that we were too perfect and too boring to even be real. Then, she made a remark about our wedding again, saying, "You guys aren't even really in love, are you? You're just doing this because you're too scared to be alone." It's sad, really. I tried to ignore her, but when Sam went to the kitchen, I lost my cool. I told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needed to either leave or show some respect. I didn't ask for her opinion on my relationship, and I didn't want her poisoning my space with negativity. She snapped back, saying, "Fine, I don't even want to be here anyway. But you've seriously lost it. You're just making this whole thing worse." The next morning, she packed her bags and left without saying goodbye. It felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, but it also hurt. She's my sister, and it's hard to cut ties, but I couldn't let her disrespect me or my fiancé anymore. I haven't heard from her since, and I'm starting to feel like I made the right decision, but part of me still feels guilty. Our parents are on Emily's side, saying that I overreacted and should have just let it go. They think I should have been more understanding of her unique personality. They're telling me that family is important and that I shouldn't let one argument destroy my relationship with her. I feel torn. Part of me wants to make up with Emily, but another part of me feels like I can't keep sacrificing my happiness just to keep the peace. Sam is supportive, but I can tell he's frustrated with the situation too. So, AITA for refusing to let Emily stay at my house after she insulted my fiancé and belittled our wedding plans? Should I have just let it slide and try to patch things up? I don't want to lose my sister, but I also don't think I can keep letting her treat me this way. Any advice would be really appreciated. So here's the situation. I, 29F, have a sister, Mia, 31F, and we've always been close like best friends growing up. We shared everything from secrets to clothes, and I thought we would always be there for each other no matter what. But things have gotten complicated recently, and I'm really torn about whether I'm the asshole in this situation. About 2 years ago, I broke up with my ex, Ben, 32M. We had been dating for about 5 years, and it was a pretty intense relationship. We were planning to get married, and I thought we were on the same page about everything, but he ended up cheating on me with a coworker. I found out in the worst way. He didn't even have the decency to tell me. I found out through a mutual friend. It was devastating. I had to move out of the apartment we shared and cut off all contact with him. He tried reaching out a couple of times, but I just couldn't forgive him. I moved on and started focusing on myself, going to therapy, and just doing the things that helped me heal. I'll admit, I've struggled with trust issues since then, but overall I've been doing better. Fast forward to this year. Mia announces that she's getting married, and naturally, I'm excited for her. She's been with her fiancé, Jason, 34M, for about 3 years. They met at work, and it's been smooth sailing for them. So I was happy that she found someone she was so in love with. The issue started when Mia told me who she was inviting to the wedding. She mentioned a few mutual friends, family, and then casually dropped that Ben would be invited. I was immediately shocked, and my stomach just dropped. I hadn't spoken to Ben in over a year at that point, and while I was over him in the sense that I didn't want to get back together with him, I was still deeply hurt by what he did to me. To be honest, I'm still processing a lot of the emotional trauma from that relationship. I told Mia that I wasn't comfortable with Ben being there, especially given the way he treated me. She tried to brush it off, saying, "It's been 2 years, and everyone's moved on. Ben's not a bad person. He's apologized, and we're all adults." She even mentioned that Ben and Jason were friends and had been hanging out at some of their work events, so it was only fair that he was invited to the wedding too. I tried to explain that just because people had moved on didn't mean I had to. It wasn't about Ben being a bad person. It was about the fact that he caused me so much pain, and I didn't think I should have to put myself in a situation where I'd have to see him on one of the most important days of my sister's life. I told her that I'd be happy to celebrate with her privately, but I couldn't attend the wedding if Ben was going to be there. Mia got really upset. She accused me of being childish and selfish for letting my personal issues get in the way of her happiness. She even said, "It's my wedding, and I want the people I care about there. Why are you making this about you?" She said that Ben was her friend too, and that I was being unfair by asking her to exclude him. I told her that I wasn't asking her to exclude him, but that I just wasn't comfortable attending if he was going to be there. She then dropped the bomb that if I didn't attend, she would be really hurt, and that it would be a huge blow to their relationship as sisters. She said it was my choice, but made it clear that it would be a choice I'd have to live with. I was torn. On one hand, I completely understood that it was her wedding and that she wanted the people she loved to be there. On the other hand, I felt like I was being asked to ignore my feelings for the sake of family unity, and I wasn't sure if that was fair to me. I thought long and hard about it, and in the end, I decided to stick to my guns. I told Mia that I couldn't go and that I was really sorry, but I needed to take care of myself in that way. She hasn't spoken to me since then. I know she's upset because she's posted a lot of passive-aggressive things on social media about people choosing not to support their family and cutting people out over petty things, but she hasn't directly confronted me since our last conversation. Our family is divided. Our parents are on Mia's side, saying that I'm being unreasonable, and some of my friends think I'm being dramatic, but others understand where I'm coming from. Ben hasn't reached out either, but I know that if I ever saw him at the wedding, it would probably feel like a slap in the face. Now, I'm second-guessing myself. Was I wrong to not just suck it up and go to the wedding for the sake of keeping the peace? Should I have just put my personal feelings aside for my sister? Or was I right to stand my ground, given how much pain he caused me? AITA for not attending my sister's wedding because she invited my ex? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.